All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this session in this week's webinar series, Best Practices for Enterprise DevOps with CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. This is being put on by us at CloudBees and our friends at iTMethods. So I just want to let everyone know a few things at the top. We are recording this. The session will be made available later on. You can ask questions. We're going to have some time for questions at the end. So even if you feel that maybe we won't have time to get to it, please ask anyway. I'm about to put a piece or some text in the chat. Just want to give everyone a heads up so you can get ready. If you tweet this and keep that hashtag intact, the first 5 people to tweet it are actually going to win a t-shirt. So I'm going to post that in the chat right now. There we go. Aside from that, it'd be great to know that everyone can hear me okay. So if you don't mind just putting your name and where you're watching from in the chat or the questions, I'd love to see where everybody's here from. We do have a lot to go over, and we're looking at roughly 40 minutes, including the Q&A for today's session. So I don't want to spend too much time up top, and so I'd like to move right over and introduce the founder and CEO of iTMethods to start us off, Paul Goldman. Paul.
Great, Max, thank you very much. Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending. Also want to introduce Craig Vitter, who's a Principal Solution Architect at CloudBees. So let's dive in here. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to tweet, and hopefully you're a lucky winner of the CloudBees t-shirt. Okay, so we have a pretty full agenda. Craig is going to take us through CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise overview. As well as talk about the how to best implement scalable distributed pipeline architecture. I'm going to then take it over. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our company, how we work with customers, some of the techniques and tools we've developed, including a playbook. I'm going to take you through a customer use case. And then, a lot of questions, where do you start? How do you get started? So we're going to talk about an approach that's worked well with our customers. And then finish up on some of the benefits of working with a CloudBees managed service provider. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Craig so we can learn a little bit more about CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise.
Thanks, Paul. You can go ahead and flip to the next slide. CloudBees, the companies behind Jenkins, spends a lot of time thinking about how to help organizations through DevOps transformations and how Jenkins can be at the heart of that transformation. When we talk to customers and prospects about what they need, we hear some common threads like, I need a reliable, scalable, secure, continuous delivery solution to deliver DevOps across the entire enterprise, and I need to unify tools and processes across the organizational silos to automate that software delivery and provide visibility into my software delivery lifecycle. Next slide, please. CloudBees responded to what customers were telling us by creating CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise starts with the open source Jenkins that we all know and love and builds upon the most popular orchestration tool in use today by making it more scalable, more highly available and resilient, easier to manage, and more secure and compliant. So what does that mean? Scalability-wise, if you need to scale your DevOps environment, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise is designed to deploy to public and private clouds, be it VMware, OpenStack, AWS, on environments like RHEL, CentOS, and Ubuntu, and enable organizations to scale their infrastructure horizontally while at the same time minimizing infrastructure requirements with elasticity built in for both build agents and masters. In terms of high availability, out of the box, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise comes with self-healing features that allow your masters and build agents to recover from failures gracefully and automatically. With CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, your durable pipeline jobs can survive master failures, and with checkpoints, you can even restart your pipelines at the point of your choosing to replay any jobs that actually do fail. A feature that's especially useful for long-running pipelines, those types of jobs that you might have out there running for multiple hours. In terms of enhanced management, administrators get to manage CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise from Operations Center, a central location that allows them to provision masters and Docker-based agents manage all their users, groups, and roles with role-based access control, and that can be tied into Active Directory, LDAP, or SAML-based directory servers, and report on all of those resources, including the masters and agents, so that they can show what's happening within their Jenkins environments. And of course, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise adds support for enterprise class security across the entire infrastructure, including that single sign-on and role-based access control for those managed resources. Your auditors will love CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise. Next slide, please, Paul. So you're probably wondering how it all works. CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise is horizontally and elastically scalable, as I said, and you can deploy it. Oh, I think we need to go back with one slide there, Paul. I'm sorry. We skipped ahead. Oh, we're missing a slide. Maybe we need to go past that slide, Paul. I'm sorry. We seem to be out of order. Can we go forward one? There we go. Sorry. Just got the slides out of order. So how it works is that you're installing on VMware, OpenStack, or AWS, and it's a completely Dockerized environment. So CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise delivers your masters and Linux-based agents as Docker containers and built-in orchestration to allow you to manage all of that from that central point that is Operations Center. That allows your administrators to quickly onboard new teams with one-click master provisioning and integration with your existing directory services. It automates the process of upgrading those masters with enterprise cluster operations. So anytime a new version of the master container is released, you can actually schedule all of your masters to get upgraded at specific times of day when they're not normally in use. You can save on infrastructure costs because your Linux-based agents are Dockerized and ephemeral, meaning they launch for a single build, execute the build, and go away as soon as that build's completed, so that you don't have to maintain agents that are just sitting around waiting to do work. They're only up and running when you need them. And of course, we have the Elk Stack built in, which allows you to monitor your cluster, all of the nodes, the jobs that are running, and provide centralized reporting on what's happening within that cluster. Advanced organizations can even deliver CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise as a self-service CI/CD solution to development teams, allowing them to provision their own masters while still maintaining enterprise security and compliance requirements. I like to call this freedom with guardrails. All right, Paul, if we can go back one slide. And this enables what we like to call CloudBees Jenkins, CloudBees, the distributed pipeline architecture. In a traditional Jenkins environment, you find organizations will scale Jenkins vertically. As teams are onboarded, as new projects are onboarded, masters tend to grow by adding storage, memory, and CPU, as opposed to adding new masters into the fold. And we've all seen those monolithic masters and some of the problems that can occur with them, things like instability, plugin conflicts, because every team wants to have their own specific plugin, and those versions can conflict with other teams that are using different versions of the same plugins, or even different plugins that conflict with each other. As they grow, the masters will take longer to restart. So if you want to add one plugin and that plugin requires a restart, maybe your master now takes 20 or 30 minutes to restart, and that outage starts to affect other teams and what they're trying to accomplish. Obviously, master failures when you have conflicts, and more. If you're now administering large Jenkins instances in the wild, you've probably experienced some of those yourself. Scaling Jenkins horizontally, giving each team or application or line of business their own master, allows your organization to avoid those types of issues, while also giving teams the flexibility to work with Jenkins in a way that really suits what they're attempting to do. Not every team is created equal. Not every application has the same requirements. But with CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise and the distributed pipeline architecture, you can give teams that flexibility while also decreasing your business risk in terms of failure time and downtime, as well as keeping all of the teams in your organization within those guardrails, making sure that they're following best practices and that they're doing things within a certain set of norms that you're applying. Let's go 2 slides down, Paul. Of course, it's one thing to look at some pretty slides, and another thing entirely to see how a tool like CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise is being used in the wild to improve real enterprise DevOps at organizations like Allianz and Orbitz. So with Allianz Insurance, it's one of the largest general insurers in the UK, and part of the Allianz SE Group, the largest property and casualty insurer worldwide. Around 85 million private and corporate customers rely on Allianz for global reach, capital strength, and solidity to help them make the most of the financial opportunities and to avoid and safeguard themselves against risk. Of course, one of the biggest challenges in that industry now is how to get to the market faster in terms of new products and new tools that allow customers to work with Allianz, and that is where software delivery comes into play. So now, not just an insurance company, Allianz is also a software company, and one of the things they need to do to service their customers is deliver that software faster. So Allianz has responded to this challenge by standardizing on Jenkins using the CloudBees distribution to help them reduce project startup times, something they've gone from days to start up new projects down to minutes, establish a reliable development and build environment that they can know when they come into work in the morning, that environment's going to be there and they're not running into those conflicts because they're using that distributed pipeline architecture and scaling that horizontally. And it improves staffing, flexibility, and scalability because they can create new masters and provision new resources on the fly and redistribute teams as necessary to meet the demands using the CloudBees products. Orbitz is another case. They have over 350 developers on 35 different teams and multiple locations around the world. Orbitz, I think we're all familiar with the Orbitz brand and how they service travel needs. And that development organization is delivering the products that you as an Orbit user are relying on for your delivery needs. And they're relying on us to supply that continuous integration to deliver those products out to their end customers. During their move to Jenkins and the CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, Orbitz cut their release time in half and then further again in half again, achieving a 75% reduction in the time it took to release software. So those are just 2 examples of the many large organizations who have been able to implement CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise in our distributed pipeline architecture to gain flexibility, reliability, and improve their time to market with new software products in a meaningful way. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Paul to move things forward. Thanks, Paul.
Great, Craig. Thank you very much. So just reintroduce myself. I'm Paul Goldman. I'm the founder and CEO of iTMethods. We are a CloudBees Gold partner and one of their inaugural MSP partners. And an MSP is a managed service provider, so our expertise is not just in CloudBees Jenkins, but also how to deploy and manage these technologies as a service. And to that point, we were first to market with a managed CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise service. So all the things that Craig has just highlighted, many customers come to us and work with us because they prefer to consume these capabilities as a service, but have it aligned to their enterprise requirements. So obviously we're going to touch on that. So let's talk a little bit about our focus and where we're playing in the market. So today's discussion really focusing on the enterprise customers, and these are typically larger organizations that in many cases have centralized or line of business DevOps functions to support independent development teams. And within these organizations, there's often some form of agile transformation that may be at some form of maturity. There's a DevOps transformation as well at some form of maturity, and there's typically a cloud transformation. And in our view, all 3 of these are critical is to come together to really enable the next generation software factory, or the simple ability to enable software teams to release high quality code in a much more simplified and automated fashion. So just a quick snapshot on iTMethods. We've been around 12 years. Our heritage is delivering managed services, and our focus has really been around helping customers exploit cloud services. And today, our fastest growing area is really around this enterprise DevOps toolchain focus, where organizations are looking to renovate existing tools. They're looking to have more cloud or as-a-service capabilities, and really they want to focus on enabling internal development teams to do the things that they need to do to move their business forward. And really the way we work with our customers, and customers choose to work with us, is we, in essence, become an extension of their team, and we bring a whole bunch of expertise that we've developed and working with a whole series of key partners. So on this slide, I'm going to highlight just a handful. Obviously CloudBees, but Amazon Web Services is a very key partner of ours. We have a number of designations, including their managed service provider certification. Atlassian, so we're very active in helping customers evolve their Atlassian suite, which includes Jira, Confluence, Bitbucket, many other tools, GitHub, and JFrog, just to name some of the key relationships we have. And really what our customers have come to us, and really our evolution as a result of listening to those requirements, is that our customers find it challenging to maintain the capabilities in-house, or they want to have the resources available to support their teams for these different initiatives. So this is the primary focus of our business. I'm going to just highlight, in the context of today's discussion around DevOps Tools, some of the other vendors and partners that we have. There are many more, but I'm just highlighting some of the common ones that we are active with as we help clients modernize their capabilities. So I'm not going to go through each bullet here, but some of these challenges may resonate with many of you. This is the feedback we typically hear or observe from customers. Some of the challenges internally around outdated tools and processes, their inability to service their development teams, too many internal dependencies, expertise, obviously resources that have cloud native automation, the tooling expertise. These resources are in short supply, and even when there is supply, it's difficult to keep those individuals engaged and retain them in many cases. One of the common things we hear from customers is around maintenance and support across many different tools. We find tools that are being somewhat neglected in terms of versioning or updates, maintenance releases, because the dependencies are buried within different parts of the organization, and it's difficult for the DevOps teams to ensure that their tools, which are serving the development teams, have a high priority to stay current with the releases. So these are just very common challenges that we've heard over the life cycle. Now, working with iTMethods and CloudBees, this is what we're able to really deliver now. CloudBees being at the center of the CI, CD, and a whole host of other capabilities, we're now able to help our customers overcome some of these challenges. I'll just highlight a few. Obviously, probably the single biggest request today is we want to move to SaaS. We want a SaaS outcome. Well, not every tool is available as a pure SaaS, and what we're offering is an enterprise deployment delivered as a service. Once these tools are deployed, the second requirement that comes out is, how do we use these tools? How do we automate things? How do we streamline our processes? How do we have better visibility and reporting into the tools? Which tools should we select? what are those best practices? So this is the ongoing life cycle that we are focused on, is understanding our customers' needs, the DevOps teams, and as Craig highlighted with CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, we can service individual teams within the organization and their specific needs, just based on how things are architected with CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, but also then how we extend that to other tools in the tool chain. So Jenkins, as you guys are, probably many of you are aware, is really a very vibrant and rich ecosystem with millions of users, with over 1,300 plugins supported, and many different tools and integrations. And this is one of the key capabilities of Jenkins, but it's also one of the challenges that customers share with us, which is, what are the right tools? We have so many different teams that are requesting different tools, or we have legacy tools, or there's additional new tools. What are the best practices? What are the recommendations? And there is no one size fits all, but there are many ways to help streamline and simplify those choices. And to that end, we've come up with a fairly simple approach. It's a little bit of a playbook that helps customers walk through from where they are today to a future desired state. So I'm just going to take you through this very quickly. And it typically starts with, what are the requirements? Are there a set of teams and use cases that are going to make up a significant percentage of the requirements? So let's start with some of those requirements. You may be using many of those tools already, but you're looking to maybe move them off-premise or have them deployed in a much more enterprise model. And then it comes down to the platforms. As I mentioned earlier, many organizations want to consume cloud. Well, there's different flavors of cloud. They want to consume on AWS, or they want a pure SaaS. Well, we can do both today and integrate those. So then it's about laying out the roadmap and timing for the tool selection. Once we have a plan, and the plan can start small and grow, then it's about integrating these tools, which starts with deployment. IAC is infrastructure as code, so you should be exploiting these techniques and automation. There will always be on-premise integration to other or existing DevOps tools, but there could be other tools that many enterprises use, such as ServiceNow for provisioning new users or teams coming out of a service catalog. And then for most enterprises, the whole SSO, so single sign-on or user access control, is a big area that has to be looked at. So we work very closely with our customers, understanding their security and compliance standards, and then making recommendations on the best ways to integrate these tools, tools that we deploy on AWS or tools that are integrated to other SaaS providers, into a consolidated, integrated tool chain. Once we've done that, it's really about now onboarding teams into a production and managed environment, and having a proper maintenance and upgrade program, and then bringing the expertise around the tools themselves. So, how do we improve the use of the tools? Every team is going to have a different user experience or competency, but how do you onboard those tools and train them on how to simplify and get the full value? So those are additional capabilities that are really important once the tools are deployed. And then once the tools and initial teams are deployed, it's really about scaling. And as Craig mentioned earlier, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise is really a core function of how you scale, how you add new masters to support new teams, new users. How do you exploit the latest technologies around cloud and containers and microservices and serverless? So these types of exploitations drive different use cases, require different tools at different points of the life cycle, and then the ongoing optimization. So as you can see, this is a fairly complex, highly integrated set of requirements to do it well. And this is our focus, and we're very fortunate to have the partners that we do have with the likes of CloudBees and AWS and Atlassian and others that we are constantly learning. We're constantly learning different techniques, best practices, and then sharing that with our customers. So I'm going to take you through a financial services customer use case. It's a global firm with hundreds of teams. They were looking to, as part of their agile and DevOps transformation, acquire a modern tool chain that could form a new standard to start to onboard over time up to hundreds of teams into this platform. And this is what the platform looks like. Many of these tools were existing in some form. For example, Jira software and Confluence was deployed on-premise. There were many different independent instances, and the client had inquired, we'd like to consume this as a service. We would like to have an enterprise model for deployment, but we also want the security and high availability capabilities. So for those that aren't familiar, Atlassian has an enterprise product called Data Center, which allows you to deploy in a cluster configuration. So it allows you to scale. It provides the high availability benefits. And those are the common characteristics that obviously large enterprise clients are looking for from each of these tools. So as Craig mentioned earlier, CJE is architected for scale, for high availability, as are many of the other tools that are highlighted here. So we go through each tool, we go through a architectural review, we align to the enterprise standards for the customer, we have a deployment model, an architectural model, an integration model, a security model that touches on your SSO, your encryption, key management, all sorts of things that are required for an enterprise deployment, as well as integration with some of the SaaS tools, such as Sauce Labs and even Slack, which is delivered as a SaaS. So in the end, the client has an integrated, hybrid, continuous delivery as a service platform. And this is really just the foundation to start onboarding teams, as well as looking at additional requirements as the business evolves. So where do you get started? This is a common question, and we have a very lightweight approach, and it's really dictated by our customer how rapid they want to accelerate this adoption. So it's essentially a straightforward approach. It's identifying an MVP project. It could start with a single tool or a number of tools. Obviously, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise is typically at the center and showcased as a service, and then integrating additional tools. In this example, Jira, GitHub, it could be any tools. Those tools could be on-premise today, they could be in the cloud, they could be on Atlassian cloud, or they could be a net new deployment. As I mentioned earlier, it could be a Jira data center deployment or even a GitHub enterprise deployment in this case. So these things are obviously dictated by our customer, but we have a very rapid delivery, rapid implementation approach. And what this serves as is really the proof points for our customers then to showcase, hey, this is how the model works. This is how the tools integrate as a service model. This is how it meets all our regulatory and compliance needs. And then this is the strategy then going forward to roll this out into a more productive use across many teams. So in closing, working with a CloudBees managed service provider, these are the things that again, we're a customer-obsessed organization, and these are the things we've heard from our clients, is they are moving to as-a-service model. I don't think that's a surprise in 2017. They're looking for the integration of an enterprise tool chain. They're looking for SaaS first type models And once those capabilities are laid down, it's really about the best practice use of the tools. How do we automate more processes? How do we exploit technologies not only in the tool chain, but in the actual development work that the teams are exploiting for new services, new software that they're releasing? And speed of adoption, as you guys are fully aware, in large enterprises, things don't always move so quickly. We're able to essentially bypass a lot of those internal dependencies and deliver these enterprise capabilities in weeks and months versus months and years. And then the last bullet is really about the resource and complexity challenges. These challenges are growing daily. It is a massive challenge even for our organization to keep up with the rapid change of technologies. But we don't claim to know everything, but we certainly invest hard to stay current. And if we don't have the answer, we'll typically know where to get it and be able to come back and make a best recommendation to our customers. So I'm going to wrap up now. I want to thank everybody for joining. We're going to move into our Q&A. So I'm going to check the questions that have come in here. Just give me a moment here. So first question I have here is, does CloudBees Jenkins work with Docker in cluster, especially cluster of master and HA and load balancing? Craig, do you want to take that one?
The question. Yeah,
sure.
I'll definitely take the question. Could you just repeat it one more time for everyone?
Sure. Does CloudBees Jenkins work with Docker in cluster, especially cluster of master in HA and load balancing?
So the high availability aspect of CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise is actually delivered across those Dockerized masters. So the orchestration piece that's creating the masters is also maintaining them, keeping an eye on them. And if a master should fail, the orchestrator will actually restart the master in another location within the cluster. And because the storage is externalized, the Jenkins home will still be there, and that master will restart utilizing the Jenkins home that was already created, so you won't lose any history or job runs, configuration information, etc. So it is a self-contained cluster running the masters and the agents that the operations center is responsible for. But you can also tie that in. For example, if you already have OpenShift, you can certainly connect to your OpenShift cluster or your Docker Swarm cluster or your Kubernetes cluster for things like other forms of ephemeral agents or deploying Docker containers into those existing clusters that you might have. So it's very flexible and is able to both manage its own resources and connect to existing clusters that you might have running of Docker resources.
Great, thanks, Craig. I'm going to take the next question here. Is the managed CloudBees Jenkins as a service typically a single instance for the entire enterprise, or is it a one per project, per team, per program? So I'm going to answer the first part, and then I'm going to ask Craig to explain the architecture one more time. But as our service, delivering this as a service, we extend that full functionality and can support the multiple teams. Craig, if you just want to comment again on the architecture and how it supports that extensibility across the project, team, and programs.
Yeah, so the CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise architecture is designed so that you could have one master, but more efficiently, what you would be doing is creating masters possibly by team or line of business or application. It really depends on your organizational structure more than CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise's architecture. But you really start to benefit as you're extending your organization and extending DevOps across your organization, because you have that flexibility to create masters, to generate ephemeral agents on the fly, and the elasticity to kind of grow and shrink those resources on demand as you need them. So really, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, a single cluster, can probably manage a very large enterprise. We've got customers now that have in excess of 200 masters running in a single cluster. But if you wanted to, you can put clusters geographically located, so you could have a CloudBees Jenkins cluster in North America, one in Europe, one in Asia, if that's something that suits your goals as well.
Okay, thanks, Craig. Next question here. Do you also provide a dashboard view of the pipeline? Craig, can you comment on that?
Sure. At this point in time, CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise itself does not have a specific pipeline view. We do have a product which was just introduced to Jenkins World called DevOps. DevOps actually will tie into GitHub and Jira, so it's slightly opinionated at this stage, and it allows you to view both commits and tickets in Jira in regards to where those things exist throughout the pipeline or series of pipelines, which we call applications, in your enterprise. So that's a bit of a higher level view designed specifically to look at software delivery lifecycle as opposed to the managed resources within CJE. And that's something that kind of bolts on top of both CloudBees Jenkins Enterprise, as well as going to be available in January for open source and CloudBees Jenkins team. And that's going to be specifically to look at pipelines and applications and the delivery lifecycle.
Great, thanks, Craig. I think we have time for one last question. So here's the question. With your managed CloudBees Jenkins and toolchain management services, how do you support the ongoing maintenance and upgrades for CloudBees and other tools? That's a great question. So each tool in our service is managed separately because each tool has its own kind of regime around upgrades, maintenance, security releases, and so on. But in all cases, those upgrades and maintenance releases are scheduled unless there's a security vulnerability that's identified. That would be something that would be communicated as required, and then action. The customer would still approve all changes to an environment. So we have a regular scheduled maintenance and upgrade program. If the client wants to be on a more frequent or less frequent release model, we can accommodate those specific needs and map into the enterprise change management or other compliance regimes. So I think we're just about out of time. I want to thank everybody for joining today, and thank you, Craig and Max, for participating.
Thank you, everyone. And again, to the audience, thank you for joining us today and for the great questions, and Annie and Paul for presenting. Did either of you have any last words you wanted to share? Or? Nope. All right. All right. Thank you, everyone. We will hopefully I'll see you on some more webinars in this series, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.